Hey garden family, today I thought I'd bring you along. I'm doing something a little different than my regular garden videos, but this goes hand in hand with the overall being sustainable, growing your own food, and eating healthier. So most recently I've gotten into making my own bread. A couple of months ago I bought a maybe more than a couple of months ago, a bread making machine from Aldi's. And that sat in my closet for another couple of months after I bought it, and I decided, hey, I got flour in the freezer. Let me just make bread. The bread came out fine, decent. It was nice. But then once I started doing a little bit more research, because these videos start coming up on my YouTube, and I came across watching some things, but I kicked the bread making up a notch. So I want to take you along with me today as I make a loaf of bread the way that I've been making it now for the past month and a half, and that's with milling my own flour. I know some of you might say, milling your own flour, why would you do that when you could just buy flour out the store? That's a whole long conversation. But if you will do your research on freshly milled flour versus store-bought flour, you will see the reason why. And a lot of people may say, I don't have time for that, but literally it's about less than 30 minutes to prepare the ingredients and getting started. Keep in mind, I'm using the bread machine to make the dough, so I don't have any kneading or anything like that. I would say the whole process just for me is less than 30 minutes, and getting the ingredient, getting my machines out and getting that ready, and then the bread machine does the rest for an hour and a half, and then I come along and maybe put another 30 minutes, so 30 hour at most. But what I'm doing is I'm following the recipe that's in this book right here. It's a recipe called the Essential Home Ground Flour, and it's by Sue Becker, and she has a 2-pound basic yeast bread recipe. So I've been following this recipe, trying to quote unquote perfect it and move on. So again, it's a whole wide research, and using the whole berry, there's a conversion, so it tells you how many cups of berries to give you how much flour. So today I'm using hard white wheat and soft white wheat. So this may get a little loud because I have to turn on my milling machine, and I am going to use, let's see what it tells me. It tells me that 2 cups of wheat berries will give me 3 cups of flour, but I know for this I need 4 to 4.5 cups of flour. So I'm going to do 3 cups of wheat berries, and I'm going to mix it up. And that's the joy with this. You can make a combination of whatever you want. So I'm going to use 2 cups of soft white wheat and 1 cup of hard white wheat. Hold tight. Okay, that is it for the grinding of the berries. Again, 3 cups of wheat berries will yield you roughly around 4.5 cups of flour. Again, let me see if I can show you what it looks like. This is the hard white berries. Just a little deep tan. And there's a whole little process of keeping your berries stored and making sure that no moisture gets in. And these little containers allow for it because it has the little rubber gasket seal in it. And this is the soft white. These are a little bit lighter than the hard, but nonetheless it's wheat the same. Okay, so once I finish milling my berries and everything, I usually take all this stuff and put it to the side, but for the sake of time, this grinds it and it goes into this little container here. Just tapping that down because flour is in that tube there. Okay, it's so easy, guys. I mean, it's easier. Some of these convenience things have really damaged us over the years. Okay, has a little cup to take excess, filter to keep the flour from going, and this is the freshly ground flour. This is it. This is all you have. Okay, it's a little darker. You can see the coloration in there. That's because you have the germ and the oils mixed up in it. And of course the berries are a little lighter, but this is it. This is it. Freshly milled flour from wheat berries. So hold tight, I'm going to take you through the other process. Okay, so we're at my bread maker. So my bread maker, when you buy a bread maker, they have specific orders for you to put things in. This right here is 1.5 cups of water. So I'm going to put that in there. This is from the recipe out of the book. It also calls for 1/3 cup of oil and 1/3 cup of honey. They're mixed in the same thing together. So I'm going to pour that in. And it all should fall out. The honey and all should fall out together. I shouldn't have to scrape anything out. And that's another little trick I learned, that if you put oil in the container first and then put the honey on top of it, the honey will flow out easily and you don't have to do all that scraping and getting everything out. As you can see, it's just a little bit left. So I'll call that done. And then the recipe calls for, it calls for me to put the honey in or sugar. In this case, we have already have that in. My recipe calls for 4.5 cups of flour. So this is the freshly milled flour. That's 1. 2. 3. 4. 4. And this wasn't all the way full, so I'm going to put a little bit in there. So that's 4. I have a little bit left in here, but I'm going to wait to see if I need it. I'm going to wait to see if I need it, because sometimes you don't need it. It just depends. It calls for 2 teaspoons of salt. Okay. This is my salt. Just going to put that on one side. And then it calls for a tablespoon of yeast. And what I typically use is instant yeast. And this is 7 grams. I think this is right about a tablespoon of yeast. Maybe a little bit more is needed. So let's get this into my little spoon measure here. So this little side over here. So that's that. We have the water, we have the oil, we have the honey, salt, and flour and yeast. This recipe it's a nice recipe, and it gives you options. So that's it for the ingredients. So what I'm going to do is close this down. Now this bread maker, just like all the other bread makers, I don't know if you guys can see that. Just zoom in a little bit. It's digital there. So right now it's on setting number 1, which is basic. And I'm going to change this to number 10, which is dough. Okay. You can see 10 there, an hour and 30 minutes. And then we will press start. Okay. We're not going to cook the bread in here. We're just going to have it make a dough. Then I'll take it out and I will put it in my own loaf pan and bake it in the oven, because I don't like the way the bread comes out as far as when it's cooked in the bread machine. But that's the start of it. It's spinning. Mine doesn't stop if you open it up, so I'm just let you see what it looks like on the inside. See how it's starting to knead all that? And that'll take an hour and 30 minutes for this dough to be complete. And I'll bring you back throughout the cycle just so you can see what it looks like. Okay? So we're making bread out of freshly milled flour. Okay, so I'm halfway through the process. Just about almost halfway through. It's 48 minutes left. It's in, I guess what it's saying, a fermenting stage. I will be adding more flour. I still have flour on the side. That should have pulled away. That should pretty much be clean. And I have some down here. But it's in the fermenting stage right now. And it'll need a little bit more. So hopefully it'll pull that flour off. And I touched it. It's a little bit tacky, but not too bad. But that's what it's doing. So once you put the ingredients in, you can go do other things. I've already cleaned up my miller and flour bin and cleaned up around my counter all the flour and everything that was there. So it's just a matter of the wait process. So if you have other things to do, I'll fold a load of clothes or whatever the case may be. Can't go outside in the garden because it just started pouring down yet again. So again, this is the process. Bread makers makes it easy, especially for those with hand issues that can't do all that kneading. When you have an appliance that helps with that, it makes it easier to do those simple things like make your own bread. So I'll bring you back, guys, in the end once this cycle finishes. So this is where we are. 47 minutes into an hour and 30-minute process of making dough. The dough right now still on a fermentation, but it's also doing the first rise. It only has 4 minutes left, so basically that would complete the dough cycle. However, I had sprinkled dough on top because I felt like it needed some of it didn't get mixed in. It's no big deal. I will mix it in when I fold out the dough and get ready to put it in the pan. But this is 4 minutes left on the dough cycle. Okay, so my cycle is complete. I'm just going to take this out. This is what it's looking like. Get the bread machine out the way. Now, let me wipe this down right here. Okay. So, I've already got my pan. It's just parchment paper, and I'm just going to turn this out. This little pan is warm. So, right in here, I see a little thing, issue, which I should have let it gone, put it on more kneading, but I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to go ahead and take my little spatula here and get the rest of this out and mix this in. To me, that looks like it's going to be sticky. And the inside of those bread makers have little paddles. Some has 2 and some have 1. Mine has 1. So put that to the side. So I don't know how this is going to go. It's already flour on the bottom. This is a little bit of flour that I have left. And with the bread machine, you shouldn't have to do all this because really the kneading should have did it. It was something on my part. And don't do what I'm doing because this is not, again, new to bread making. I'm just trying to get the flour coated. See how that's sticking? It's not supposed to be that sticky. At least I don't like it that sticky. And I don't want to knead it too much because what happens is when you knead it too much, it gets heavy and dense. It's already more dense. It's not like store-bought bread, so you don't want to knead it that much. So that's all I'm going to do with that. I'm not going to overwork it, but what I am going to do is go ahead and roll this out. We're going to see how this comes out. And sometimes I win and sometimes I lose. And this is all part of my learning process. Again, this is freshly milled bread. I'm just rolling this out so that I can fold it. And had a little bubble there. Could make some bread. And this is a 2-pound loaf. Alright. So again, that was sticking over there. And you can press that out. I just don't want it to stick. And this was the last little bit of flour from that I milled. So I'm just using this to fold this in. Press out air bubbles. And then I'm just going to fold this over. And again, guys, this is like, and I'm recording myself to show you guys. So of course I'm moving fast and I'm kind of nervous. I just want to flatten that out just a little bit, because I notice when you have that big seam in the middle, it makes the bottom part of the crust thick. So pinch this in. And normally I would not have, and this is going to be a long fold. See how that's a little sticky? I could have easily made 2 loaves, but I don't need 2 loaves. And these loaves of bread only last about, depending on the humidity or your home. Again, y'all, this is going to be interesting. And it should be tight and smooth on top. See those crinklies? I know what's going to happen is the bread is going to, it's going to split. So I'm going to just leave it alone. Put it in my pan. And I'm going to give it another rise. So I'm going to set my oven to 170 just for 1 quick minute, and I'm going to put this in there to help it rise again. So that's it. I'm concerned about these pieces here. But we'll see. The bread will get eaten nonetheless. And I just want it to come up just a little bit. Maybe about 1 inch over. And I'm just, this is olive oil, so that the top will not dry out, okay? And this is a lot. So as you can see, this is the loaf. I've sprayed it down with olive oil. It's supposed to be 2 pounds. I saw some issue before. I thought it was too sticky. This was on a previous loaf, and I just kept adding flour, and kept kneading. And one of the things that happened was it didn't rise properly the way that it was supposed to. And it was just such a heavy loaf. It was just really not good. So, and for the sake of preserving the wheat berries and the flour, I am not going to over knead this, although I thought it was a little bit too sticky. And again, I'm new to this. I don't know, you know, what to expect. So I'm just running with it. This is about my maybe 10th loaf. Maybe 10th loaf of freshly milled flour. So each time I'm thinking about what I did before and how I could correct what I think will fix the issue that I had. So my battery's going dead. I'm going to put this in the oven to proof, and I'll bring you guys back once it's complete. Okay guys, so it's been about 40 minutes since I sat this in here to proof. And as you can see, it has come over the rim. I'm going to go ahead and put it on the bottom rack. And we're going to start the baking process. I'm moving real slow because I don't want this to sink. But that's 40 minutes in proofing. It doubled in size. And we're going to go ahead and get it to bake. And I'll bring you back when it's complete. So it should bake about, I'm thinking 30-35 minutes. I usually put it on 350, but I think the recipe says 375. It just depends on your stove, so you can deal with it accordingly. And I think the internal temperature should be at least, I think 190. But I have to double check, but I'll bring you guys back. Okay, so it's been about 35 minutes. On the bread. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take it out and test the temperature. If you have not smelled fresh baked bread, you're missing out. So let's get in here and get this out. And I can see a couple of things, deficiencies from okay. So here we go with this. The bread, the crust feels soft in there. But I'm just gonna stick this in the side. It's 196 degrees, which is good. I'll turn my stove off. And I'm gonna let this sit. It's a light colored bread. And I don't like my bread to rise too high, but this is fine. But one thing, I don't know if you guys can see those little indentations in there, and that comes from the fold, right? When I folded it. So it wasn't completely smooth across the top or level. That's okay. This is not store-bought bread. This is my bread. But if you're looking for that perfection, you can, you know, fold your bread better once you start getting used to making the bread. But for purposes, as I made mine, of course we want it to look like what we buy store-bought, and that comes with practice. Again, I am new to this. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this out. And this is the purpose of the parchment, is to pull it out easily and put it on a cooling rack. And I'm going to let it cool for a while. And I will bring you guys back when I cut it. Okay, so the bread has cooled. Again, this is a very dense slice of loaf of bread. And although it feels lighter than some that I've made, I want to get it a little bit lighter. And I know sifting, I've read sifting some of the bran out of it may make it a little lighter. Not sure. Haven't tried it. But again, for the most part, it looks like a regular loaf of bread. It's a little uneven, even though we're not critiquing it. I just want to let you see how I've made the bread. And maybe I think I'm going to change the direction. I'm going to change the direction of my camera so you can see how I cut. So you can see the inside as I'm cutting it. Okay. So basically, and I do have a, when you start something new, you know, you have all these little gadgets. I do have like a bread slicer where you put the bread into the little thing, and it has the preset slice thickness. See that loaf of bread? It looks beautiful. Set it to the side. Again, this loaf is heavy. This is 2 pounds. I think next time I will do a 1 pound loaf. But I'm happy with that. So this is all part of my gardening, self-sufficiency, eating healthier journey, is learning new ways to do things. I don't eat a lot of bread, but when I do, the bread that I was buying was like $6, $7 a loaf. So soft on the inside. Now this loaf again will probably last about a good 5 days or so. And what I did is I just took a how I store it. I have some bread bags, but I just used the old loaf bag that I went out and bought, and I just put it in there. And this is the bread that I made last week. I think a week ago today. This is the bread that I made a week ago today. There's no mold or anything on it, but it was starting to get a little stale and dry out. So I'll just give this to my chickens tomorrow. But guys, thank you for watching. I hope you gear into this journey of bread making as I continue mine, along with my gardening and just doing things to better my health, to be more knowledgeable in, you know, preparing food and making those things that we're used to having and paying a lot for. If you see a loaf of bread, you will know that it has about 100 ingredients. And this was water, flour, oil, a little sweetener, and yeast. 5 ingredients. It's not going to sit on your counter for a month or 2 and look the same way. But anyhow, guys, keep doing what you're doing.